Dear listener, you will never know how many false starts and flubs so many of the podcasts you listen to and watch contain. You will never know all the things they cut out because they cut them out. But I'm here to tell you that the flubs happen. And sometimes I delete 2 files. I just throw them out. I start over. I'm like, my blubble is not flubbling. And I think we should make a new language where these are words because they're very fun to say, but they're not words. But that's me, and I digress. Aloha from Bali. Welcome back to Wanderous. It's been a little while since I've recorded. I'm your host, Andrew Crusoe, and I'm in the middle of a really big writing project. And I've been endeavoring to balance, always to balance, doing this show with finishing, technically, my 8th book that I'm going to be talking about in the coming months, I'm sure. But today we're going to talk about Kathmandu. We're going to leave Kathmandu. I've been talking about the capital of Nepal for a while now, and we're going to wrap it up with a return to Pashupatinath with an incredible view and a haunting experience, actually. Let's explore together. Let's have some fun today. Come along with me. Cue the song. Before we jump into this episode, which according to my records is episode 55, I want to celebrate a couple little victories for the show and personally. I've been doing previews of this show on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. And 2 of those actually have a pretty fair algorithm. You can figure out which 2. And I was very happy to announce that 2 of my videos in a row went viral on TikTok for the first time in my life. Really cool. The first one popped 20,000 in a couple days. And right now is over 34,000 about Nepal. Really cool. First time that's happened. And then I did another one a few days later. I try to do 1 or 2 preview videos of this show to TikTok. If you're not following me on TikTok, hopefully it still exists when you're listening to this. I'm @Hello Crusoe, the word hello, and then CRUSOE. And it's really fun. I share rich media over there. I really do, because I put in clips of the places I've been. I have a huge backlog of video that I never actually edited. It made it into some things, but there's a bunch of unreleased video that's really very cool and really beautiful moments. So I'm intercutting me recording the show with that footage. So that's a little real recent bit of news that I'm really happy about. And I've picked up, a few hundred more followers, which is cool. And I don't know, I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful that TikTok has a pretty, it's basically a meritocracy. If your video is good and people enjoy it and interact with it, you can have 2 followers and TikTok will still promote it because they don't really care about followers over there. They just care about, is this a video that's going to match with the people that want to see it? And that's really cool. So I just wanted to draw some attention to that and celebrate a little victory there. And I'd like you to do the same for yourself. When you have a little victory, please tell people about it. And if people get jealous, don't hang around with those people anymore. Find people that'll celebrate your victories with you. That's really important in life. I've noticed it's really important in life. Find people that you want to celebrate their victories and they want to celebrate your victories. That's a prerequisite for me at this point when it comes to friends. Some competition's all right, but don't crap on each other. Life's too short, man. You're going to die. You're going to die someday. Don't be stressed out every day. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. So let's jump into, I'm going to share with you the last place I stayed, the 3rd Couchsurfing host I had in Kathmandu, it was a family, again. It was basically this brother and sister I barely saw. I think actually, I'm trying to recall, I think their parents were gone. So they only liked to host people when their parents were gone because it was just less stressful for them. And they owned this building. It was pretty cool. They owned this, their family owned a 3-floor building, like a apartment complex essentially, near the airport in Kathmandu. And it was near, I believe it's called Coca-Cola City because there's like a Coca-Cola factory nearby, which I didn't see, but I learned a lot about wealth, frankly, by being in Nepal and the different ways that can manifest in monetary challenges and supply. This sounds so like dry, but it's not. There's a cool story that this connects to, because I realized I was staying there. It was great. I had my own, the guy gave me his room. It was like a queen size bed. It was fantastic. They had roof access. You could see Annapurna Range from the roof. People who support the show will get to see those photos. As always, it's patreon.com/HelloCrusoe, HelloCrusoe. Amazing photos this week. But the funny thing was, I go and I shave one morning, right? And I have a Panasonic. I had a Panasonic. I have a different one now, but I had a Panasonic shaver, an electric shaver, right? As you do. Made in Japan, and they make great stuff, obviously. And my host was like, we could say covetous of, he wanted the shaver, and he wanted to trade with me, because apparently it was very hard to find a shaver that was a rectangle head, right? The head that touches your skin has these, you see them in the West all the time. They've got 3 or 4 or 5 horizontal shaving columns, right? So you're essentially pressing a rather flexible rectangle up to your face. And if you've ever shaved before, generally this works pretty well. Especially if you get 5, like, pretty good. Saves you time. It's great. It's fine. It's great. Some of them will have more of a triangle, that should be circles. He had one that were 3 circles. I'm sure you've seen this too. He didn't like his, and he was just like, oh, is it possible? Can I trade? And I was like, oh man, like I really like my shaver. It was a gift from my father. I explained to him, this is like, one of the very few things that I'm traveling with that I have that is very useful, hasn't failed me. And we decide, as we brainstorm, we're like, well, what if we go back to Thamel? Now, if you've listened to this show for a minute, you know that I went to Thamel and I bought some North Face pants there, and I had a whole experience. Thamel is the biggest market in Kathmandu. It's famous, and it's really fun to walk around, and just lights up at night, and there's people on rickshaws and they pull people through, and there's all kinds of stuff, people on bikes, and it's very lively and it's fun. You can find a bunch of cool stuff. So we go to Thamel on his bike, and I have a funny photo of my backpack shoved into the seat trunk, you could say, because there's usually storage under the seats for these motorbikes. And we zip around town, and I have another photo. I'm glad I photographed this, because I might have forgotten, because so much has happened. But I have a photo of my Panasonic shaver on this glass countertop, and this man is photographing it. And he's looking around, trying to figure out, does anybody sell a shaver like this anywhere in Kathmandu? We stopped I want to say we stopped at 3 places. And there's these these older Nepali men going, haven't seen this one before. And I find out that I guess Panasonic just doesn't ship. They just don't import. Maybe it's a Nepal thing. They just don't import Panasonic shavers into Nepal. Or at least nothing like this model. Couldn't find it. We bopped around. We zipped around. It was fun to go back. Unfortunately, this is one of the few missions that was not a success. Not a success in that way. Luckily, he wasn't rude or pushy. I was kind of firm. I was like, this shaver's perfect for me. And it also didn't help, if I could be very blunt, it didn't help that the shaver he was offering me had a power cord that was fraying. This is the one he was using right now. It wasn't in good condition. And I had to decline. I didn't feel good about it. I was like, no, man. And I knew, he'll find another shaver. His family owns a building. His family has tenants. I think that they can probably find another shaver that will work. Anyway, we had this little adventure, and then we stopped at a sweet shop nearby that was kind of a franchise. I'm blanking on the name. It doesn't matter. There are always yellow signs. And of course, in Nepal and India, a sweet shop is basically a small bistro, a small little restaurant usually. They definitely make their money off of selling sweets, but they usually have they'll have small meals. They'll have chickpea and they'll have little things. So I had a interesting chickpea sambal mix thing. But it's always a trip. It's always such a trip going to these sweet shops, and you see stuff. The supporters will see this because they get access to all the photos. We got 15 photos this week. It's about, I think we have 15, maybe 16. And you see stuff like Mota Bhujia and Gathia and stuff, and it's in the Roman alphabet. Like for whatever reason. Oh, Tip Top, that's what it's called. Sweet shop Tip Top, which is pretty good reviews. And they were cool, but you see these stuff and you're like, I have no idea what Horandana is. You will see, this is one of the cool things, and gift packages, of course. You'll see stuff you've never even imagined, like neon orange sweet flakes of things that I don't understand because they've been developed there and it's just a different taste, a different sensibility, of course. So right after that, he told me in exchange, I think we actually had a little deal. I was like, hey, we can pop around. I will do everything I can to help you find and bring my shaver, do everything I can and talk to these guys and try to find a shaver like mine. But I'd really like to go back to Pashupatinath. And he was like, yeah, sure, it's good because it's not that far. Kathmandu's not really that big. It's not like crazy big. I mean, I think it took us, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes on the bike to go from Thamel to Pashupatinath, something like that. And we get to Pashupatinath, and this is the thing where in a previous episode, I sort of hinted that I felt like there was a lot of vagueness, bit of a double standard, and I didn't really understand the ticketing. It wasn't very clear to me. And we go to Pashupatinath, and I think it's because I was with him, but we just walked in and nobody asked for a ticket or anything. Now, it might have also been because it was after sunset too. That is also very possible. But I do think in some of these places, having a local with you will give you a discount. Because the locals also, they'll be able to negotiate for you. That I would call that the first travel tip of the episode. But it's a very somber moment at Pashupatinath because, as you might remember, they cremate people. They have special areas right along the river. I think it's the Bagmati River, where they have these big bonfires. And I took a photo. Don't worry, you can't see any bones. It's not spooky. But for the people who support the show at patreon.com/HelloCrusoe, you will see a pretty vibrant, nice, raw image that I shot, very ambient, of 3 bonfires in the process of cremating, old school cremation, just like making a bonfire. And it's an honor to be cremated at Pashupatinath. It's a very holy place. And we walk. There's a trail, there's a walkway, and you go up these levels because Pashupatinath is right kind of abutted against this hill. And you go up this hill, which I recommend you go kind of in and you go kind of behind. The main temple is this trapezoid sort of shaped. It's like a trapezoid stacked on a trapezoid. It's a very cool building. It's a very fascinating building. And it's just a main Pashupatinath temple. I don't think it has a specific name, although it is technically a pagoda. And it's special. It's greenish because it's copper and gold. And of course, it has a lingam inside, and it's all about Shiva and Shiva's omnipresence. And you can't go in unless you're Hindu, actually. It's a very vast complex. There's 500 shrines all around this. But in the middle is this, and I have a photo of this from the hill, is this double-storied pagoda. And it looks very green in the light, probably because it's copper. It was very, well, I mean, I couldn't go in anyway, but it looked pretty closed at that time. I would say, yeah, oh wow, it looks like it was about past 10 o'clock at that point. So we had that can't be right. It might have been. It might have been actually past 10 o'clock at that point. And we took this trail though, up these sequence of levels, because there's so many. You're passing all of these shrines as you go up. We got to a seating area, benches, and we were able to get this fantastic view. That's where I took these photos of the main temple and got a nice zoom image on the just fascinating double-decker roof and this haunting perspective on the cremation that was happening. Again, I'm going to zoom in a lot. Let's see. Nah, you can't see anything. There's nothing gory, but it was just a moment. It was a very somber moment to see these people honoring their dead right on the river, even though it was from a distance. The next day we did something that was pretty fun, and it was something I hadn't gotten to do in a while, which was cook with my hosts. The last host I had, he didn't really cook. He was like gone all the time. He was like an Indian entrepreneur. And the first hosts I had were that couple, as you might remember, who were amazing. They were just amazing. And they wouldn't let me cook. Like they just wanted to cook and just spoil me. But this time it was a brother and sister, and I was a few years older than them. And I was like, I have nutritional yeast. I want to make my cashew sauce, my vegan cheese sauce that's based on cashews. And I was able to find cashew, and they had some ingredients too. And I bought carrots, and we were able to make, through a very protracted and complicated process, because they had a very funny blender. They had like a small one, but it worked. It's always an adventure to adjust to other countries' appliances, and sometimes there's just no blender. You have to do creative stuff. Like when I was in Oxford, you might remember I used like a handheld mixy thingy, is the technical term, where I was able to chop up that stuff. And I don't know. This was much better than that. And we got this golden yellow, like we simmered it down and, ran it through their blender. I think it was too small. We had to do it in 2 stages and made the noodles. And they had never had anything like this. Like nutritional yeast, you can't find, very difficult to find in Asia and South Asia. And I still had some that I had been traveling with for 4 or 5 months at that point, right? Because I had left the United States in June. And at this point, it was late October, coming into late October. And, nutritional yeast is a powder. It's better if you refrigerated it, but you couldn't do that. I was traveling. I was in my pack. The end of that nutritional yeast is kind of a silly story. I'll get to that eventually. But I blended all this together. The nutritional yeast is important. The cayenne, you could find pepper, bell pepper. You can sweeten it, sweeten it and sharpen it and do all the things. But the nutritional yeast was the secret ingredient because it makes it cheesy. It makes it taste cheesy. So they'd never had this before, and I was very happy that it was a hit. I think I also steamed some broccoli, which that's really the recommendation. When you do cashew-based, I should just give you the recipe. I've given it in various times. I think there's another episode where I give it. But it's basically, I don't really know how I know it in metric, but it's like a handful of cashews. Proportionally, I would do like 2 handfuls of cashews and like 4 or 5 carrots and an onion if you can swing it, and golden potato. Do like, I would say, as much golden potato as you use carrot, and simmer that in water until it's tender. So maybe like 10 minutes. Throw some salt in there too. And then pour out some of the water, but make sure you simmer the cashews for the last, throw the cashews in the last 4 minutes, right? And I have to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And then you put all of that in the blender. The main ingredients are cashews, right? Cashew, golden potato, and carrot. That's the main thing. With some water, and you blend that together, throw in a little bit of salt. Then you throw in the nutritional yeast, which should be a flaky white substance. Sorry, white? No, should be a flaky yellow substance. And if you're really adventurous, throw in cayenne powder or cayenne pepper of some kind. the main magic is the way that the cashew, nutritional yeast, and the golden potato work together is incredible. The fat profile is perfect. The cashews add the fat, the potatoes smooth out the flavor. It's just great. And it was a hit. They loved it. I was very happy. I really wanted to give back, and they were either aunt would come and check in on us, and she's like, oh, he's very nice, but she couldn't speak much English. And they hosted me for 3 nights, and we went up to the roof to eat this food that we'd made together. And I'll never forget, and I have some very cool sunset photo. Well, yeah, some great perspectives of this. I'll never forget going up to the roof of their building and seeing Annapurna Range, white-capped peaks in distance, realizing that Kathmandu was absolutely surrounded by mountains on all sides, hence Kathmandu Valley. And in the distance, I could even see, and I got a cool photo of this, a jet, a passenger jet, climbing out of the valley, going to who knows where, probably India. And it was very striking to me to see a lot of these are like 7,000 meter peaks just around us, just there. And I really started to feel, and I felt this also in Pokhara, like it's just normal to them, of course. And I was like, do they take this for granted, how beautiful this is? That night, my host, the guy, took me to, he wanted some help with photography, so we went over photography basics, kind of random, and I taught him about aperture, ISO, speed, and shutter, and he took notes, and it was like, he was very curious about photography, and I really wanted to give back, because they'd been so kind. They even let me use their washing machine, and we had a bit of a cultural moment with the washing machine, because apparently in many Nepali families never put their undergarments in a machine washer, which was something I didn't know. There was something like they didn't think it was hygienic, which that didn't logically make sense to me personally. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but like I would really, if this is possible, I'd really like to do this, because I mean, like, I'm a very clean person, and this is not like, there's not poop all over my clothes. Come on. And I think they were more worried about my socks, to be honest. And they had just gotten this quite nice, I think it was an LG, like really nice washing machine. And I just said, I check, you can ask your parents. I think they texted their parents and they thought about it, and they let me use their washing machine, I was very grateful. I was just like, it's your choice, but I would really appreciate this. So they were flexible for me, which was really cool. And I think that's partly why I spent like 3 hours doing everything I could to teach this guy about photography, because I felt a little bit guilty, to be honest. I was like, I've soiled their washing machine. Never mind the detergent. Everything slips off with detergent. It's not, you know what I mean? Anyway, that night, my host really wanted to show me the Momo shop. Really wanted to take me and have some authentic momos, which are basically Nepali dumplings. And there are vegetarian options, but you have to be careful. This is like borderline street food. And we went to this little shop. I'm actually quite proud of this street photo that I took, where these dogs are just waiting somberly for this guy to like give them food. Very cute dogs, but it's such a vibe. You take a photo of a city, a developing city like Kathmandu, and the streets, some of the streets are dirt, are borderline, and I don't know. It's very nostalgic for me to look at these sometimes. And I had the momo, they fry these things, and I think it's potato, right? They put the potato and then they wrap it in the batter and then they fry it, and it was good. But be careful, because I was not happy the next day. If I recall correctly, my digestion was a little messed up, but that only lasted for about a day. And even if you're there, even if you watch them cook it, you don't know how your body, if it's the first time you're having something, you don't know how your body is going to react to a new spice, a new plant, essentially. So it's always good to don't have anything scheduled the next day if you're trying out a new food. That's my advice. That's what I've learned after so many countries. It's better to, you can try food, you can experiment, but you might have a bad day the next day. However, as I would learn in India, your body will adapt. And one thing I'm very happy to say now, and maybe it's just because I'm less attached to it now, but I don't get food poisoning as much. And maybe it's just because I'm more aware of where it can come from. But also, like, India laid me out. Like, India really got me in a couple moments. And I think it was because when I had tea or coffee, I think they didn't boil the water long enough. That's my theory, at least for one instance when I was on the train, which is a fun story we'll get to. It's not great to have food poisoning on the train, even if it's minor food poisoning. Your body just wants to get everything out of its system. And I would recommend don't have strange drinks. And by strange, I mean, just don't just drink your own water on the train. Don't have drinks from anybody else other than bottled water, which should be okay. But sometimes I don't want to scare you too much. Sometimes there's like knockoff bottled water too. It's good to go with brands that you recognize. And you can always, type in the brand of the bottled water into Google and be like, is this good? Even Indians do that sometimes, because when you're traveling around, there's a funny thing. I think it's in India too. Bisleri and Billary, and one of them is super cheap and a knockoff, and they don't filter their water. Bisleri, I think, is the good one. BIS is the good one. Is that right? Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure Bisleri is the good one. That one's fine. Never had a problem. I've actually never had a problem. I say that. I should preface all of this by saying I've never had a problem drinking bottled water anywhere, to be honest. I just drink what the locals are drinking when it comes. If it's pre-packaged, you're fine. That's not going to be your problem. Your problem will be if you have street food that you just don't know what's going to happen. The street food is the dangerous one. If you go to a reputable cafe or a little restaurant or whatever, if it has good reviews, you're 95% chance you'll be totally fine, especially if there's nothing raw. If it's all cooked, it was just cooked there, there's people in the restaurant, you're fine. You're probably going to be fine. But if you travel for months on end, you will get food poisoning, and it's just something to accept. But the way you handle it is the whole game, right? If you say, I'm going to rest, I'm just going to take a day, most of this stuff is just gone in 24 hours. Your body does what it needs to do. You drink a lot of water, probably bottled water, and you maybe get some oral rehydration salts. You can look that up. ORS powder, very popular in India. Even Indians, this is the thing. Even Indians get food poisoning. When they go to a different part of India and they're not used to it, even Indians get food poisoning. Even Nepalis get food poisoning. So it's just unfortunately, it's a kind of a different hygiene standard is part of it. They can't afford to treat all their water yet. But also a big component of it is that you're being exposed to spices that you've never been exposed to before. And I feel that my experience with that made me stronger at the end of the day, even though it was really tough. And I also know very early on I know what food poisoning feels like very specifically. And that can be a good thing too, because if you know it's coming on, you can take a charcoal pill, which will absorb certain things, which can help. Or if you really just want to wave a white flag, you can take an antibiotic, but I wouldn't jump to that right away. But if if you're, 4 hours in and this is food poisoning, you can take an antibiotic. People will do that for 2 or 3 days, a special gut antibiotic, which I grabbed that in India at one point. Really can help. It really helps. So charcoal, antibiotics, and just giving your body electrolytes. That's why people have the oral rehydration salts. It's basically the same thing as something like Gatorade, and it lets you replenish your electrolyte levels in your blood, and that also helps. But you eat, if you're in that part of the world, you have a chapati or a roti, you have like essentially a tortilla, and you have like, well-cooked breads that'll absorb acid in your stomach. You have bread and water for a day, and then you're basically fine. Most of the time you're over it. So this ended up being an episode about food. Go figure. It was a very food-tastic 3 days that I was there, cooked for them. Had Momo, was good. It just, body wasn't ready for it. The other Momo that I would have later on in Pokhara, which is what the next episode is going to be about, had no problem. It was fantastic. Really, really yummy. And don't be afraid of trying foreign food. Just don't have street food. Go to a restaurant that has reviews and you'll be fine. Really. That's the Andrew's seal of approval. Google Maps reviews. Well, everybody, that's the way it is. Thanks for tuning in to Wanderers in this 55th episode. I'm very delighted to have you with me. If you've enjoyed this episode, what if I did the whole show like that? Please go to Spotify and write a review. It really does help. It really does help if you're able to rate or like or do something with the show on Spotify if you can. And subscribe. If you don't use that at all, please go to wherever you're listening to this and subscribe. YouTube is a great place to subscribe. I've been releasing more like behind the scenes clips on YouTube more periodically, and even the going viral on TikTok even helped that, which was pretty cool. But yeah, so we did it. We made it through, even though my throat is a little wonky. We did it. We did an episode. Yay! I really recommend that you go to Kathmandu, even though it's a bit dusty. The people are, especially if you use something like Couchsurfing.com, the people are quite gracious. I will ramble probably and sing the praises of how safe I felt in Nepal. Truly, like I was really touched. I felt that the Nepali people were very gentle, at least with me. They're just very, very aware of the social interaction. They were very in the present moment with me. And I wonder why that is. I have a few theories. I don't have enough data to prove any of those theories. I do think that living in high elevation causes you to be a little more introspective. That's I don't know if that's true. It's a theory or a hypothesis, you could say. Because in science, we have the hypothesis, and then if something is supported by data, then we call it a theory. Did you know that? Yeah. People get those mixed up. A scientific theory is actually quite powerful. It means it's replicable. It means you can repeat it. So these are the fun facts of the day. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, you're absolutely welcome to leave a comment and ask. I look at all the Spotify comments. I look at all the YouTube comments. And those are the best places to leave comments, I would say. You can also leave a comment on my TikTok. I look at those unless I go totally viral, and I've got a few videos that have like hundreds of comments. I look at most of them. I'm not going to promise. I'm not going to promise to look at every comment on TikTok, but I definitely look at all of them on YouTube. I'll do my best. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this episode, please take an action. Call to action, CTA. Please subscribe or like. It really does help. It really does keep the show going, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Thank you so much. Please have a wonderful day and get outside your comfort zone. There's a whole world out there that might just blow your mind. Aloha.